Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Horizon. He looked out at the stars through the big window. It was just another normal day in space. His crew was checking a new star system called Kepler 442 they were looking for. Planets that humans could live on. Jake had been doing this job for 15 years. He was good at it. His ship was one of the best in the Earth space fleet. The crew trusted him, and he trusted them. They had found 12 new planets for humans in the last 5 years. "Captain," said his second officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, "we're getting some strange readings on the sensors." Jake walked over to look at the screens. The numbers looked wrong. Something big was coming toward them through space. Something very big. "What is it?" Jake asked. "I don't know, sir. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen." Suddenly, the space in front of them began to glow. Blue and white lights flashed everywhere. Then, huge ships came out of nowhere. They were not like human ships at all. They looked like they were made of crystal and light. Jake counted 12 ships. Each one was as big as a small moon. They glowed with a strange blue-white energy that hurt to look at. The ships moved without making any sound. They just floated there like giant ghosts. "Get me Admiral Carter on the communication system," Jake said. His voice was calm, but inside he was worried. These ships were bigger and more advanced than anything humans had ever built. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was in her office when the message came in. She was the head of all human space forces. She had fought in 3 wars and seen many strange things. But nothing had prepared her for this. The communication screen showed Jake's worried face. "Admiral, we have a situation. 12 unknown ships just appeared near our position. They're huge." "Are they hostile?" Lisa asked. "We don't know yet. They're not moving toward us, but they're not moving away either." Lisa was about to answer when every communication system on Earth started making noise at the same time. The same thing happened on every human colony in space. Mars, Europa, Titan, and all the other worlds where humans lived got the same message. The message came in perfect English. It also came in Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and every other language that humans spoke. Whoever was sending it knew a lot about humans. "Inferior beings of this sector," the voice said. It was deep and cold. "I am High Consul Zeph Kaller of the Valdari Empire. We are the chosen ones, the divine rulers of this galaxy. Your species will submit to our will or face annihilation." On the screen, a creature appeared. It was tall, maybe 3 meters high. It had 6 arms and skin that glowed like starlight. Its eyes were bright blue and seemed to look right through anyone who saw them. When it moved, the light around it moved too. "We have watched your kind spread across these stars like insects," the creature continued. "You build your little colonies and think you are important. You are not. We are gods, and you are nothing." Lisa felt angry, but she also felt afraid. This creature talked like it really believed it was a god. That made it very dangerous. To prove its point, the creature raised one of its 6 arms. On the screen, everyone could see 3 asteroid mining stations near Jupiter. They were big stations where hundreds of humans worked to dig up metals and rocks. The creature pointed at the stations. Beams of pure energy shot from the Valdari ships. The beams hit the stations and turned them into dust in seconds. Hundreds of people died in an instant. "This is what happens to those who do not bow to gods," Seth Kaller said. "We can destroy worlds with a thought. We can change the laws of nature. We can make you into anything we want." Dr. Helen Brooks was watching from her laboratory on Mars. She studied alien life, but she had never seen anything like this. The way the creature moved, the way it spoke, the way it destroyed those stations. It really seemed to think it was a god. She started taking notes. The Valdari had technology that seemed impossible. They could appear and disappear. They could destroy things with beams of energy. They could speak every human language perfectly. But Helen noticed something else. The creature was proud. Very proud. Maybe too proud. Commander Rick Hayes was chosen to lead the first meeting with the aliens. He took his ship, the U.E.S. Endeavor, and flew toward the Valdari fleet. He was scared, but he was also brave. Someone had to try to talk to them. When Rick's ship got close to the Valdari ships, he felt strange. The air around him seemed to buzz with energy. His instruments started acting crazy. But he kept going. "This is Commander Rick Hayes of the United Earth Space Command," he said over the radio. "We want to talk with you peacefully." The answer came back quickly. "You do not talk to gods. You pray to them. You serve them. You worship them." "We are a peaceful species," Rick said. "We don't want to fight. Maybe we can find a way to live together." The Valdari laughed. The sound was like ice breaking. "You think you can live with gods as equals? You think your tiny minds can understand our greatness? You are animals, smart animals, but still animals." Rick tried to explain about human culture, about democracy, about freedom, but the Valdari would not listen. They had decided that humans were inferior, and nothing would change their minds. "You have 72 hours, Zethkalar said finally. "In that time, you will surrender completely. You will give us all your worlds. You will become our servants. If you refuse, we will destroy every human in the galaxy." The Valdari ships moved to positions around Earth, Mars, and the other human worlds. They cast huge shadows across whole continents. People on the ground could see them floating in the sky like dark clouds. President Maria Rodriguez called an emergency meeting. All the leaders of humanity gathered to decide what to do. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. Nobody knew if they could win against beings who claimed to be gods. Jake Morrison brought his ship back to Earth. He had seen the Valdari ships up close. He knew how powerful they were. But he also knew the humans had never given up without a fight. The 72 hours began to count down. Soon, humanity would have to choose between slavery and war against gods. The Valdari did not wait long to show their power. Captain Amy Foster was on patrol near Saturn when she saw something impossible. The Valdari had chosen Titan 7, a dead moon with no air and no life. It was just a ball of rock floating in space. Amy watched through her telescope as one of the Valdari ships moved close to the moon. The ship did not land. It just floated there, glowing with that strange blue light. Then the moon started to change. The gray rock began to turn green. An atmosphere formed around it like a bubble. Clouds appeared in the new sky. Rivers started flowing across the surface. Trees grew from nothing, getting bigger and bigger until they were tall forests. In just 4 hours, the Valdari had turned a dead rock into a living world. Amy had never seen anything like it. Humans needed years to terraform a planet, and then it was hard work. The Valdari had done it by thinking about it. "Command, are you seeing this?" Amy asked over the radio. "We see it," came the reply from Admiral Carter. "Keep watching and recording everything." Amy recorded everything she saw. The Valdari were not using machines or tools. They were changing the moon with their minds. They were making matter and energy obey their thoughts. On Mars, Dr. Paul Kim was studying the recordings that Amy sent back. Paul was one of the smartest people alive. He understood physics and space technology better than almost anyone. But what he was seeing made no sense. "The Valdari are manipulating quantum fields," he told his team. "They're changing the basic, building blocks of matter just by thinking about it. His assistant, Dr. Nancy Webb, looked at the data. "How is that possible?" "I don't know," Paul said. "But it explains why they think they're gods. If you could reshape reality with your mind, you might think you are divine too." Paul worked day and night to understand the Valdari technology. He found that they had some kind of mental power that let them control energy and matter. It was like magic, but it followed rules that he was starting to understand. Meanwhile, High Consul Zethkaller decided to visit Earth personally. He wanted to show the humans exactly what they were dealing with. The Valdari leader appeared in the sky above New Geneva, where the United Earth Assembly met. He did not come in a ship. He just appeared, floating 3 kilometers above the ground. His body glowed like a star, and his voice could be heard all over the planet without any technology. "Look upon your God," Zethkaller said. His voice echoed from the mountains to the seas. "I am eternal. I am all-powerful. I am everything you are not." People all over Earth stopped what they were doing to look up at the sky. Some fell to their knees in fear. Others ran and hid. But many just stood there, staring at the glowing figure above them. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm us," the Valdari continued. "Your science cannot comprehend us. We have ruled this galaxy for millions of years. We have destroyed 1,000 species who thought they could resist us." President Maria Rodriguez was in the assembly building directly below the alien. She could feel the power radiating from Zethkaller like heat from a fire, but she was not afraid. She was angry. "We will not bow to you," she said, speaking into a microphone that broadcast her words to the world. "Humans are free. We will always be free." Zethkaller laughed. The sound was like thunder. "Free? You are insects. You live for a few short years, and then you die. We are immortal. We are perfect. We are gods." To prove his point, he pointed down at the assembly building. The entire structure began to glow with the same blue light that surrounded him. Then it started to rise into the air. The building, with all the people inside, floated up toward the Valdari leader. Maria and the other leaders felt themselves becoming weightless. They were flying, but not by choice. "This is what gods can do," Zethkaller said. "We can make you fly. We can make you crawl. We can make you anything we want." Then he gently lowered the building back to the ground. It was not damaged. No one was hurt. But the message was clear. The Valdari could do whatever they wanted with humans. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was not impressed. He was a soldier, and soldiers fight back when someone threatens them. Steve commanded a squadron of the newest human warships. They had plasma cannons, nuclear missiles, and antimatter bombs. "I don't care if they think they're gods," Steve told his pilots. "Let's see how godlike they are when we hit them with everything we've got." Steve led his ships toward the smallest Valdari vessel. It was still huge, but it was alone. Maybe they could damage it or even destroy it. The human ships opened fire with all their weapons. Plasma beams hot enough to melt steel shot toward the alien ship. Nuclear missiles followed, each one powerful enough to destroy a city. Antimatter bombs that could crack a moon exploded against the Valdari. Nothing happened. The weapons went right through the alien ship, like it was made of air. The Valdari ship did not even seem to notice the attack. It just kept floating there, glowing peacefully. Then it fought back. The Valdari ship sent out a wave of energy that hit all of Steve's ships at once. The human vessels stopped moving. They could not turn their engines on or off. They could not fire their weapons. They were trapped. Steve watched in horror as his ships began to change. The metal hulls became crystal. The electronics turned into something that looked like living tissue. His ships were becoming part of the Valdari technology, but the aliens were not done. They changed the human crews too. Steve felt his body becoming heavy and cold. He looked down and saw that his hands were turning into crystal. His skin was becoming hard and clear like glass. "This is what happens to those who attack gods," came a voice in his head. It was Zethkeller speaking directly to his mind. "You become our servants forever." Steve could not move. He could not speak. He could only think. Around him, his entire crew was becoming crystal statues. They were still alive, but they were trapped in their own bodies. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the change stopped. Steve's body returned to normal. His ships became metal again. He could move and speak and think freely. "Consider this." "A lesson," Zethkeller said. "Next time, the change will be permanent." The Valdari ships moved away, leaving Steve and his crews floating in space. They were alive, but they were terrified. They had used their best weapons against the aliens and had not even scratched them. All over human space, the same thing was happening. The Valdari were showing their power and demanding worship. They built huge temples on every world they occupied. These temples were made of the same crystal material as their ships. Humans were forced to come to these temples every day. They had to pray to the Valdari and call them gods. Those who refused were turned into crystal servants, their minds wiped. Clean of all rebellious thoughts, Dr. Helen Brooks was studying the crystal servants when she made a disturbing discovery. The people who had been changed were not dead. They were still alive inside their crystal bodies. They could think and feel, but they could not move or speak. "The Valdari are keeping them as slaves," she told Admiral Carter. "They're using human minds to help run their technology." Lisa Carter felt sick. The aliens were not just conquering humans. They were turning them into living computers. The Valdari announced that they would begin something called the Divine Harvest. They would convert all human colonies into worship centers. Every human would serve their new gods for eternity. Some humans tried to fight back. Others tried to hide. But the Valdari seemed to be everywhere at once. They could appear and disappear, like ghosts. They could read minds and see through lies. President Rodriguez called another emergency meeting. The leaders of humanity gathered in a secret location deep underground. They had to decide what to do. "We can't fight them," said one. "General, our weapons are useless." "We can't run," said another. "They can find us anywhere." "Then what do we do?" Rodriguez asked. No one had an answer. The Valdari seemed to be exactly what they claimed to be, gods. And humans were just insects trying to fight the sun. But somewhere in the darkness of space, a few humans were not giving up. They were watching and learning and planning. They had seen the Valdari's power, but they had also seen something else. They had seen that the aliens were proud, very proud. And sometimes pride could be a weakness. General Clark Thompson was not the type of man to give up. He had fought in wars before, and he knew that every enemy had a weakness. Even gods had to have something that could hurt them. Clark was hiding in an asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter. He had gathered 200 ships and 5,000 soldiers who had escaped when the Valdari took over the human colonies. They lived in the dark spaces between the rocks, where the alien ships could not easily find them. "We need to learn everything we can about these creatures," Clark told his officers. "They may think they're gods, but they're still just aliens. And aliens can be killed." Dr. Nina Walsh was one of the scientists who had joined Clark's resistance. She was an engineer who built starships and weapons. She had been studying pieces of Valdari technology that the humans had managed to collect. "I found something interesting," Nina told Clark. "The Valdari don't actually change the laws of physics. They use their minds to control some kind of energy field. It's like they have invisible tools that can reshape matter." Clark leaned forward. "Can we block these energy fields?" "Maybe," Nina said, But first, we need to understand how they work. Captain Ben Rogers was Clark's best scout. He led small teams of soldiers who sneaked around the occupied human worlds. They watched the Valdari and learned their habits. The aliens have a routine, Ben reported. Every day, they spend 4 hours in meditation. During that time, they focus all their mental energy on keeping their technology running. They're vulnerable then. Vulnerable how? Clark asked. They can't use their powers as much, and they don't pay attention to what's happening around them. This was the first good news Clark had heard in weeks. If the Valdari had weak moments, maybe humans could find a way to hurt them. Ben led his team to a Valdari temple on Europa. It was a massive building made of blue crystal that reached high into the sky. Inside, 12 Valdari were meditating, their bodies glowing with that strange light. Ben's team crept closer. They had weapons, but they knew the weapons would not work on the aliens. Instead, they had something else, explosives that Dr. Walsh had modified to disrupt energy fields. Humans planted their bombs around the temple and ran. When the explosives went off, the building shook. The blue light flickered. For just a moment, the Valdari looked confused. Then they got angry. The aliens came out of their temple like angry hornets. They sent energy beams after Ben's team. The beams turned rocks into dust and melted metal. But the humans were already gone, hiding in the underground tunnels they had dug. It worked, Ben told Clark over the radio. For a few seconds, their power was weaker. We actually made them worried. Dr. Walsh was excited by this news. If we can disrupt their energy fields, we can hurt them. We just need bigger disruptions. She worked day and night to build new weapons. These were not guns or missiles. They were machines that could interfere with the Valdari's mental control over energy. She called them EMPDISRUPTORS. The first test came when Captain Sublake led an attack on a Valdari outpost on Ganymede. The outpost was small, with only 3 aliens guarding it. They were using human prisoners to build more crystal temples. Sue's team set up the MP disruptors around the outpost. When they turned the machines on, something amazing happened. The Valdari's glow began to fade. They looked confused, like they could not understand what was happening. Now, Sue shouted. The humans attacked with normal weapons, bullets, explosives, and plasma guns. This time, the weapons worked. The Valdari tried to use their powers, but the disruptors were blocking them. One of the aliens fell down. It was wounded. Blue blood leaked from its arm. The creature looked at the blood like it could not believe what it was seeing. They can bleed, Sue whispered. They can be hurt. The other 2 Valdari got scared and ran away. They disappeared in a flash of light, but they left their wounded companion behind. This was the first time humans had ever captured a living Valdari. Walsh studied the creature carefully. It was tall and thin, with 6 arms and skin that normally glowed. But now, away from its energy sources, it looked almost fragile. They're not gods, Walsh told Clark. They're just aliens with very advanced technology. Their power comes from machines hidden all over the galaxy. If we can find those machines and destroy them, we can make them normal again. Clark smiled for the first time in months. Then that's what we'll do. The resistance began to grow. Humans who had given up hope started to fight back. They learned to build EMP disruptors and use them against the Valdari temples and ships. But the aliens were not stupid. When they realized that humans could hurt them, they changed their tactics. High Consul Zeth Kaller recalled half of his fleet to protect the most important Valdari installations. The insects are learning tricks, he told his officers, but they are still insects. We will crush them before they can become a real threat. The Valdari began hunting the human resistance with new determination. They used their mind-reading abilities to find hidden bases. They turned captured humans into crystal servants and used them as spies. Clark's asteroid base was discovered. The Valdari ships surrounded it, trapping the humans inside. Zeph Kaller himself came to finish off the resistance. "You have caused us annoyance, little insects," the High Consul said. His voice echoed through the asteroid tunnels. "But your tricks will not save you. We are still gods, and you are still nothing." The Valdari ships began tearing the asteroid apart with energy beams. Rocks exploded, metal melted. Humans ran for their lives through collapsing tunnels. But Clark had prepared for this. He had built secret escape routes and hidden smaller bases throughout the asteroid field. Most of his people escaped before the Valdari destroyed their main base. "We lost the battle," Clark told his surviving officers, "but we learned something important. The Valdari are afraid of us now. They wouldn't send their best ships to fight insects unless they thought we were dangerous." Dr. Walsh had escaped with her research. She had learned more about how the Valdari technology worked. "They have a network of energy generators spread across the galaxy," she explained. "These generators amplify their mental powers. The more generators we destroy, the weaker they become." The resistance split into small groups that could move quickly and hide easily. Each group had EMP disruptors and knew how to use them. They began attacking Valdari installations all over human space. Lieutenant Frank Davis led one of these groups. He was young but smart, and he understood that this war was different from any other. "We're not trying to conquer them," he told his team. "We're trying to prove that they're not gods." Frank's team attacked a Valdari temple on Mars. The temple was huge and heavily guarded, but Frank had a plan. Instead of attacking the aliens directly, he targeted the energy generators that powered the temple. The attack was a success. The temple's power failed, and the Valdari inside could not use their abilities. They were forced to fight like normal creatures, using only their natural strength and speed. The humans won the battle. More importantly, thousands of people on Mars saw their supposed gods defeated by ordinary humans with ordinary weapons. News of the victory spread quickly. Other resistance groups began using the same tactics. The Valdari were losing battles all over human space, but the aliens were learning too. They began building better defenses around their energy generators. They created new weapons that could hurt humans, even when their powers were blocked. Some young Valdari began to question their leaders. They had been taught that they were perfect and divine. But if they were gods, why were these humans able to hurt them? "Perhaps we are not as divine as we believed," one young Valdari named Keth Mailer said to his friends. "Perhaps these humans are more than just insects." This kind of thinking was dangerous to the Valdari Empire. Their whole society was built on the idea that they were gods. If that idea was wrong, everything they believed would fall apart. High Consul Zeph Kaller tried to stop this doubt by being even more brutal. He ordered the destruction of entire human colonies. He turned more prisoners into crystal servants. He demanded that all Valdari prove their loyalty by killing humans. But the damage was done. The Valdari were no longer sure of their own divinity. And uncertain gods are not gods at all. That the resistance was still small and weak compared to the Valdari Empire. But they had achieved something important. They had shown that the aliens could be defeated. They had planted seeds of doubt in the minds of their enemies. Clark Thompson looked at the stars from his new hidden base. The war was far from over. The Valdari still had most of their power, and they were still very dangerous. But for the first time since the aliens had arrived, Clark felt hope. "We can win this," he told his officers. "It will take time, and it will cost us a lot, but we can win." The human resistance was growing stronger every day. They had learned to hide in places where the Valdaray could not find them, inside nebulae, on rogue planets, and in the dark spaces between stars. From these hidden bases, they struck back. At their enemies, Commander Ross Adams was leading one of the most successful resistance groups. He had 30 ships and 300 soldiers who had become experts at fighting the Valdari. Ross had learned that the key to victory was not strength, but speed and intelligence. "We hit them fast and hard," Ross told his team as they prepared for another mission. "We destroy their energy generators and get out before they can respond. No heroics, no unnecessary risks." Their target was a Valdari supply depot on Titan. The depot had 5 energy generators that powered the alien ships in the Saturn system. If they could destroy those generators, an entire Valdari fleet would be crippled. Ross's ships moved through the shadows of Saturn's rings. The ice and rock fragments hid them from the Valdari sensors. They had learned to use the environment as their ally Dr. Walsh had built new and better EAB disruptors. These were smaller and more powerful than the old ones. A single disruptor could now shut down a Valdari energy generator for several minutes. "Remember," Ross said over the radio, "we're not trying to kill them all. We're trying to make them mortal." The attack began at dawn. Human ships dropped out of the rings like falling stars. They fired their EMP disruptors at the energy generators. Before the Valdari knew what was happening, the aliens tried to fight back, but their powers were blocked. Their energy beams flickered and died. Their ships could not turn invisible or teleport away. They were trapped and vulnerable. Ross's team destroyed 4 of the 5 generators before the Valdari could mount a defense. The 5th generator was too well protected, but 4 out of 5 was still a victory dot as the humans retreated. They saw something that filled them with hope. The Valdari ships in orbit around Titan were losing power. Some of them were falling out of the sky, their crews unable to keep them flying. "Target destroyed," Ross reported to General Thompson. "Enemy fleet disabled." This was the pattern across human space. Small, fast groups of humans were attacking Valdari installations and winning. The aliens were losing battles. They should have. One easily Captain Sue Blake had become a legend among the resistance. She had led successful attacks on 12 Valdari temples. Her team had freed thousands of human prisoners and captured dozens of enemy weapons. Sue's latest target was a Valdari fortress on Europa. The fortress was built around a massive energy generator that powered the alien defenses in the Jupiter system. It was heavily guarded by 50 Valdari warriors. "This is going to be dangerous," Sue told her team. "The fortress has backup generators. Even if we disable the main power, they'll still have some abilities." Sue had learned that the Valdari were not all the same. The older ones were more powerful, but also more proud. They expected humans to run when they saw them. The younger ones were weaker, but smarter. They had learned to be afraid of human weapons. The attack on the fortress went perfectly at first. Sue's team disabled the main generator and breached the outer walls. But then something went wrong. The Valdari had set a trap. They had expected the humans to attack, and they were ready. Hidden backup generators came online, restoring their powers. "Fall back," Sue shouted, but it was too late. The Valdari surrounded her team with walls of energy. There was nowhere to run. High Consul Zeth Kaller himself appeared in the fortress. He was angrier than Sue had ever seen him. His whole body burned with blue fire. "You insects have caused us too much trouble," he said. "I will make examples of you. Your deaths will remind other humans not to challenge gods." But Sue was not afraid. She had faced the Valdari many times before. She knew they were not gods, just aliens with advanced technology. "You're not gods," she said. "You're just bullies with fancy weapons. Zethkalar raised his hand to kill her. But then something unexpected happened. One of the young Valdari stepped forward. "High Consul," the young alien said, "perhaps we should question them first. They might have information about other resistance groups." Zethkalar was furious. "You dare question me?" "I only suggest that we be practical," the young Valdari replied. "These humans have shown they can hurt us. We should learn how." This was the first time any Valdari had openly questioned their leader. Sue could see the doubt in the young aliens' eyes. The resistance was working. The Valdari were losing faith in their own divinity. Zethkalar killed the young Valdari with a blast of energy, but the damage was done. The other Valdari in the fortress had seen their leader murder one of their own for asking questions. Sue and her team were imprisoned, but they had achieved something important. They had shown the Valdari that their empire was fracturing. Meanwhile, Dr. Walsh had made a breakthrough. She had been studying the captured Valdari technology and had discovered something amazing. The Valdari's power comes from a network of Venn quantum field generators, she explained to General Thompson. These generators are connected to their homeworld. If we can find the central control system, we can shut down their entire network. Thompson leaned forward. "Where is this control system?" "On their homeworld, in the center of their empire. It's the most heavily defended place in the galaxy." Thompson was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Then that's where we're going." The plan was incredibly dangerous. The Valdari homeworld was surrounded by thousands of ships and defended by their most powerful warriors. No human had ever been there and returned. But Thompson knew they had no choice. The resistance could win small battles, but they could not win the war unless they struck at the heart of the Valdari Empire. Captain Drew Taylor was chosen to lead the mission. He was the best pilot in the resistance, and his ship was the fastest. If anyone could reach the Valdari homeworld, it was Drew. Dr. Walsh gave Drew a special weapon, a quantum disruptor that could shut down the central control system. It was a one-time use device, but it was their only hope. "You'll only get one chance," Walsh told him. "If you miss, the Valdari will know what we're trying to do. They'll move the control system somewhere we can't find it." Drew understood. This mission would either end the war or make it much worse. The journey to the Valdari homeworld took 2 weeks. Drew's ship was small and fast, but it had to avoid the alien patrol fleets. He traveled through dark nebulae and empty space, staying far from the normal shipping routes. As he got closer to the Valdari homeworld, Drew began to see signs of their empire. There were artificial structures the size of planets. There were fleets of ships that stretched from one star to another. There were energy barriers that could stop entire armies. The Valdari homeworld itself was beautiful and terrible. It was a perfect sphere covered in crystal cities that reached into space. The entire planet glowed with the same blue light as the Valdari ships. Drew could feel the power radiating from the planet. This was the source of everything, the energy that made the Valdari think they were gods. But as he watched, Drew saw something that gave him hope. There were Valdari ships fighting each other in orbit around the planet. The doubt that the resistance had planted was growing into civil war. Some Valdari still believed they were gods. Others had begun to question everything they had been taught. The empire was tearing itself apart. Drew smiled as he prepared to land on the planet. The resistance had done more than just fight the Valdari. They had shown the aliens that they were not perfect. They had given them the gift of doubt. Now it was time to finish what they had started. Lieutenant Frank Davis was leading another attack on the other side of the galaxy. His target was a Valdari factory that built the energy generators. If he could destroy it, the aliens would not be able to replace the generators that the resistance had been destroying. Frank's attack was successful. The factory was destroyed, and with it, the Valdari's ability to repair their network. The aliens were becoming weaker every day. All across human space, the resistance was winning. The Valdari were losing control of their empire. Their ships were falling out of the sky. Their temples were being destroyed. Their perfect society was crumbling. But the war was not over yet. The Valdari still had their central control system. They still had their most powerful warriors. And they still had High Consul Zethkalar, who would never admit that his people were not gods. The final battle was coming. And when it came, it would decide the fate of two species, the aliens who thought they were gods, and the humans who refused to bow to anyone. Captain Drew Taylor's ship landed on the Valdari homeworld in the middle of a civil war. The crystal cities were burning. Valdari ships fought each other in the skies above. The perfect empire was destroying itself. Drew had to reach the central temple where the quantum control system was hidden. But first, he had to survive in a world where reality itself was a weapon. The Valdari homeworld was unlike any place humans had ever seen. Gravity flowed in rivers through the air. Time moved in circles, making the same moment happen over and over. Buildings grew like living things, changing shape as Drew watched. "This is what happens when you give gods too much power," Drew said to himself as he walked through the impossible city. The streets were full of fighting Valdari. Some still glowed with divine light and called themselves gods. Others had stopped glowing and looked almost normal. They fought with energy weapons and mind powers that could reshape matter. Drew had to be careful. Even the weakest Valdari was stronger than any human. But they were too busy fighting each other to notice one small human sneaking through their city. He saw a group of young Valdari surrounding an older one. The older alien was trying to use his powers to escape, but the younger ones had some kind of device that blocked his abilities. "You lied to us," one of the young Valdari shouted. "You told us we were gods, but we can be hurt. We can be killed. We are gods." The older one replied, "These humans are just using tricks. We are still divine." But his words had no power anymore. The young Valdari had seen too much. They had watched their supposedly perfect empire lose battles to primitive humans. They had seen their ships fall from the sky and their temples destroyed. The older Valdari died, killed by his own people. Drew felt sad for a moment. The alien had really believed he was a god. Maybe that belief had made his life meaningful, even if it was wrong. Drew kept moving toward the central temple. On the way, he met someone unexpected, a Valdari who was not fighting anyone. The alien was sitting alone in a ruined plaza, staring at the chaos around him. He looked tired and confused. When he saw Drew, he did not attack. "You are one of the humans," the Valdari said. His voice was quiet and sad. "Yes," Drew replied, keeping his hand on his weapon. "I am Cathvalar. I was a temple guardian for 300 years. I believed I was serving the divine will." The alien looked at his hands. "Now I do not know what I believed." Drew realized that this Valdari was not his enemy anymore. The alien had lost his faith in his own godhood. He was confused and lost, like a child who had just learned that his parents were not perfect. "What will you do now?" Drew asked. "I do not know," Cathvalar said. "If we are not gods, what are we? If our empire was built on lies, what was the point of anything we did?" Drew felt sorry for the alien. "You can be whatever you choose to be. You can be better than you were." Cathvalar looked up at him with surprise. "You do not hate us for what we did to your people?" "I hate what you did," Drew said. "But I don't hate what you could become." The Valdari stood up slowly. "The central temple is that way," he said, pointing toward a massive crystal structure in the distance. "But it is heavily guarded. High Consul Zethkalar is there with his most loyal followers. They still believe they are gods. Thank you, Drew said. No, Kethvala replied. Thank you. You showed us that we could be wrong. That is a gift, even if it hurts. Drew left the former temple guardian and continued toward the central temple. The building was huge, stretching up into the clouds. It was made of the same blue crystal as the Valdari ships, but it was older and more powerful. Around the temple, Drew could see the last of the loyal Valdari. These were the ones who refused to give up their belief in their own divinity. They glowed brighter than ever, as if they were trying to prove their godhood through sheer force of will. Getting inside the temple was harder than anything Drew had ever done. The loyal Valdari had powers that defied all logic. They could walk through walls, see in all directions at once, and strike with lightning that moved like living things. But Drew had advantages they did not expect. He was small and quick. He did not glow with divine light, so he was harder to see. And most importantly, he was not trying to prove he was a god. He was just trying to do a job. Major Julie Roberts had landed on the planet with a team of soldiers. Her job was to cause a distraction while Drew reached the control system. Julie's team attacked the temple from the outside, drawing the attention of the guards. The battle was fierce. The loyal Valdari fought like the gods they believed themselves to be. They summoned storms of energy and turned the ground into lava. They made gravity pull in different directions and caused time to slow down around their enemies. But Julie's soldiers had EMP disruptors and quantum weapons that Dr. Walsh had designed. More importantly, they had something the Valdari had forgotten: the willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. Sergeant Mike Collins threw himself in front of an energy beam to save his teammate. Corporal Lisa Stone used her own body to shield the EMP disruptor from enemy fire. They were not trying to be heroes. They were just doing what humans do, protecting each other. While the battle raged outside, Drew slipped into the temple. Inside, the building was even stranger than the city. The walls showed scenes from the past and future. The floor was sometimes solid and sometimes liquid. Voices whispered in languages that had never been spoken. At the center of the temple, Drew found what he was looking for. The quantum control system was a massive crystal that pulsed with blue light. It was beautiful and terrible, like a star that had been captured and forced to serve. Standing in front of the crystal was High Consul Zeth Kaller. The Valdari leader looked exactly the same as when Drew had first seen him on the transmission. Tall, glowing, and absolutely convinced of his own divinity. So, Zeth Kaller said without turning around, the insects have finally come to challenge God in his own temple. You're not a god, Drew said, pulling out the quantum disruptor that Dr. Walsh had given him. Zeth Kaller turned around and laughed. Look around you, insect. I control matter and energy with my thoughts. I reshape reality with my will. I am immortal and all-powerful. If that does not make me a god, what does? A god would not need to prove it, Drew replied. For the first time in millions of years, Zeth Kaller looked uncertain. What? You spend all your time trying to prove you're a god, Drew explained. You demand worship. You punish anyone who questions you. You destroy anyone who challenges you. But a real god would not need to do any of that. Zeth Kaller's glow began to flicker. I am divine. I am perfect. I am ... You're scared, Drew said. You're scared that you're not special. You're scared that you're just another alien. Species with advanced technology. You're scared that you're mortal. The High Consul attacked with all his power. Energy beams hot enough to melt planets shot toward Drew. The air itself became a weapon, trying to crush the human. Gravity reversed and time twisted, but Drew was ready. He activated the quantum disruptor and pointed it at the control crystal. The device hummed with power, charging up for its one and only shot. Zethkalar realized what was happening. No, you cannot destroy the source of our power. We are gods. No, Drew said as he fired the disruptor. You were just aliens with a really good computer. The quantum disruptor hit the control crystal and shattered it into 1,000,000 pieces. Instantly, the blue light that had filled the temple went out. The strange effects stopped. Gravity returned to normal, and time flowed straight again. All across the galaxy, the Valdari's network of energy generators shut down. Their ships fell. From the sky, their temples went dark. Their powers faded away like morning mist. Zethkalar stared at his hands in horror. The glow was gone. He looked ordinary now, just a tall alien with 6 arms and frightened eyes. What have you done? He whispered. I've given you the truth, Drew said. You're not gods. You never were. You're just people like us. The High Consul tried to attack Drew with his bare hands, but he was weak and clumsy without his powers. Drew easily avoided him. This is impossible, Zethkalar said, falling to his knees. We ruled the galaxy for millions of years. We were perfect. We were divine. You were deluded, Drew said. But that doesn't mean you can't become something better. Captain Jake Morrison arrived with a fleet of human ships just as the Valdari. Network collapsed. He had been fighting alien ships in space when suddenly they all stopped moving. The crews inside were confused and powerless. This is Captain Morrison to all Valdari vessels, Jake said over the radio. Your empire is over. But this doesn't have to be the end. We can build something new together. Some of the Valdari ships surrendered immediately. Others tried to fight with conventional weapons, but their hearts were not in it. They had believed they were gods for so long that they did not know how to be anything else. Dr. Helen Brooks landed on the Valdari homeworld to study what had happened. She found a civilization in ruins, but also a civilization that was finally free to grow and change. The Valdari were trapped by their own mythology, she explained to General Thompson. They believed they were perfect, so they never tried to improve. They believed they were gods, so they never learned to be people. Many Valdari committed suicide when they lost their powers. They could not live with the knowledge that they were not divine. But others, like Kethvalar, began to.